stand for? Beit Yaakov lechu v'nilcha. It's part of a pasuk. It was the house of Israel, house of Yaakov. Let's go. But there's another two words that were left out. Be'or Hashem. Right? Beit Yaakov lechu v'nilcha, the house of Jacob. Let's walk in the way of God. So Rav Kook said, our job is to make sure that they're walking in Or Hashem. Or he said, like the flag. I don't know if anybody knows. How was the flag created, the Jewish flag? When Herzl sent his, I think Wolfson assistant, he had an assistant, Wolfson, he said, I need to find the flag. And he went into a shul and he saw a tallis. It was a Sephardic, must have been a Sephardic tallis. They have the blue tallises. And he saw the tallis with the two blue lines. And that was how, and he put the Star of David in the middle, and that's how the Jewish flag came in. But it's a tallis. Rav Kook said our job is to put the tzitzis on the tallis. So what makes this yeshiva special is that it's in the light and the spirit of the Rav Kook. Rav Dov Bigon was a student of the son of Rav Kook, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook. And when Rav Kook landed in Israel on a little over 100 years ago, and he arrived in Yaffo to be the rabbi of Yaffo, and he arrived in Israel, he looked around and he said, what is missing here? The Torah world, they have yeshivas, they're going to grow. Why do I need to build my own yeshiva? And he said, the reason why I need to build my yeshiva is because they're missing one thing in the curriculum. They're missing what we call amuna. And amuna, some yeshivas already were studying Mesilat Yesharim. It became more popular. It was written, the book Mesilat Yesharim 300 years ago by the Ramchal, but some yeshivas were studying it, but they were studying it as an emotional excitement, have a little Musa shmuz, have a little emotional experience. And the Rav Kook said, no. Amuna, you have in the Torah what to do, and you have why to do it. Amuna is why you do it. It's the soul of the learning. And you don't need so much of it, like the ratio of the head to the body. 10% of your time of learning should be Mesilat Yesharim. And Rav Kook created a program of learning Emunah. And the program begins with Mesilat Yesharim. You can't go anywhere if you don't start with, first of all, developing your character, developing your connection to God, developing your love for God, your admiration for God, developing your character, all these issues that are very, very important. The second book is Kuzari, which is your connection to the Jewish nation. Your understanding that you're not an individual, you're a nation, you have a mission, and that's what the Kuzari is about in the essence of the book. So after many years of learning with you here, Mesilat Yesharim, I started teaching Kuzari. But I asked Rav Lissman, anytime you see an opening and there's a class that's needed, call me, I'll run in and I'll keep my foot in the door for Mesilat Yesharim. It's such an important book that everybody must learn. It's the second most popular book in the Jewish library, second most sold book in the Jewish library after the Bible. It's studied in every yeshiva, and it has all the secrets of everything you need to know, all the summary and the conclusion of all the Kabbalistic writings. Ramchal was the greatest Kabbalist, and he put it all into a small book, very small little book, that's basically a guidebook on how to reach the highest spiritual level that a person can reach in this world today, which is called Ruach HaKodesh. We know 2,000 years ago the temple was destroyed. With the temple being destroyed, the whole world went down a level. Prophecy stopped, and idol worshiping went down in its power. And now we have two highest levels you can reach in spirituality and in impurity, which is Ruach HaKodesh and Ruach HaTumah. You have freedom of choice, and therefore you have to have the ability to choose, and therefore God allowed us to choose. That's what makes us who we are, freedom of choice. So you have people that have Ruach HaKodesh, and this book explains how to get there and the steps you have to take. And you have people that have Ruach HaTumah, people that draw from the impurity. And if you would at this table, if you would invite someone to speak who has Ruach HaTumah and someone has Ruach HaKodesh, you wouldn't know which one to choose. Like today, you could have, it's not a simple thing. A lot of people want to have discussions. Listen to the other side. Hear what they have to say. A lot of these discussions, a lot of people get pulled in. Because the other side knows, it's not like they're just weak and they have nothing to say and they don't have any charisma and they don't have any knowledge. They have wisdom, they have knowledge. The Torah says, see, I place before you life and death. Choose life. Why do we choose? If we had the presentation of someone Ruach HaKodesh and someone Ruach HaTumah, why would we choose the Ruach HaKodesh person? Because God said choose life, and God said choose the prophet, don't go after the idol worshiper. And unfortunately, it's a great battle till today. And you see, people are very confused. And also we see that when Mordechai was up, like we always have this question: do the nations of the world love us or hate us? Right? They wanted to. There was a decree to kill all the Jews, and they were ready to do it. But then Mordechai became the king, the assistant to the king, and everybody loves Mordechai, and people are converting, and people are like praising him. And just 5 minutes ago you wanted to kill us, and now you love us. The answer is the world is split to three, and it's actually interesting. I always thought most of the world doesn't like us. But I have found out today statistics. They did like a statistic with 10 questions, and based on these questions, you know if a person is anti-Semitic. Today in Israel, you have 2 billion people hate us, anti-Semitic. 2 billion people love us, and whatever in the middle is 8 billion that they don't love us or hate us. They're in between. So you have two leaders, which is Mordechai or Haman. So the world doesn't love us or hate us. It's like what's called the silent majority. They're looking for a leader. They're looking to be part of whoever's successful. If Haman's the assistant to the king, they'll follow him. If Mordechai's assistant, they'll follow him. They don't really. They're neutral. It's like in words of the rabbinical lingo, you have kodesh, holiness, and you have tumah, impurity. And then you have chol in the middle, right? Eating something that is like not allowed is tameh. And then you have food that's like can go this way or that way, like eating tomatoes is not something wrong, but how much of it you're gonna eat? What are you gonna use it for? It's like the chol can be like there's a story of Rav Kook met one of the great poets on the boat. And he said, I think it was Jabotinsky, and he said, share with me your songs. And he said, what do you holy people care about my mundane songs? And he said, us holy people have no problem with chol. We have a problem with tumah. If a person's going to sing songs of impurity, of going into the sewer, we don't want to hear those songs. But if a person's going to write a song about the sun, the moon, the stars, the clouds, the trees, beautiful, why not? Even great rabbis wrote songs that Rav Kook wrote songs, and also great rabbis, they wrote songs that were not whole, like Kodesh. They weren't like, they were chol. They were songs of poetry or whatever. Having Virol and other rabbis. That being said, the last class I was here, I jumped in, we did the introduction. And now we're going to jump into first chapter. The Ramchal is the master educator of educators. Everything is organized, systematic. A genius beyond, like we said, it's a meteor. Like God sends once in a while these souls that give us food for generations, that are from a different planet. The Rambam, and the Arizal, the Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Tanya, the Rav Kook. There's these souls that come in, boom, and they just they're not from this world, and they give us how do you say, ability to live and to thrive and to grow for generations based on the small time that they come into this world. The Ramchal lived only till 38. And he wrote 80 books, and many of his books were burnt because people were anti It was right after the Shabtai Tzvi crisis, and people thought that they blamed him to be a Shabtai Tzvi guy because he was teaching Kabbalah and all kinds of stuff like that. So the Ramchal says, before we go into the process of developing our character, becoming cautious, overcoming laziness, overcoming, all the different spiritual challenges we have. And I just want to mention one more thing about this book, that my rabbi answers, questions every day. People write him questions, SMS questions, and sometimes it's 600 questions a day or more. And he said 99% of the questions that are asked in halachic questions, the answer is in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. The answer is there's a book called the Shulchan Aruch, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, written only about 100 years ago by Rav Shlomo Gansfried. And it has like a summary of all the halachas a person needs to know to get by. 99% of the questions are there. What bracha do I say here? What do I do if I, all the simple things. And 99% of the questions that have to do with hashkafa, with developing character, with all the questions, getting close to God, 99% of the answers are in this book. This book is, like we said, the summary and conclusion of all of the different steps that person needs to grow spiritually, get close to God. The book deals with 4 different subjects. 1, yira, what we call admiration. 2, tikkun midot, what we call to walk in God's ways, which means developing your character. It's not saying this is who I am, accept me as I am. No, I understand that I need to grow. I understand that I need to develop. I understand that God put me here to become a better person. That's 2. 3, loving God. How do I love God? How do I come to love God? And 4, how do I have the right kavana? How do I have the right intentions? How do I serve God with all my heart and all my soul? And not just be like a robot that puts on my tefillin, done. No, how do I really love God and do it with a kavana and the right intention? So those are the 4 issues this book deals with. But before the Ramchal goes into the practical working on the character, he starts with chapter 1. Chapter 1 says that the basic idea of chapter 1 is that unless you internalize and understand in depth, in knowledge, that there is what's called an upper world and a lower world, an internal world and an external world. There's a body and there's a soul. And there is something that you cannot grasp with your physical senses, what we call the soul, or what we call olam haba, the next world, unless you can acknowledge this, that there's something you cannot grasp with your physical senses, but it's more real and more eternal and exists in reality, and is eternal and exists in reality than any other physical thing you could understand, you are not ready to move forward the next steps of in other words, that's the first foundation that you need to build in order to take the next steps. So the whole first chapter is about Olam Haba. You need to understand what is Olam Haba, and the Ramchal goes with 5 different angles to explain Olam Haba. First of all, many people need to understand it in different ways, so it's 5 different angles. And another reason is many people, have different ways of connecting to something. We could be sitting here, and each one could hear something that hits home. Wow, that's what I needed. And the other person sitting next to says, I don't get it. What's so great about that? Because your soul is different, your personality, your life experiences, everything, and you need something else. That's what Rav Kook said. It's very important. Whenever you're in any class or you learn anything that hits home, right away, write it down. Everyone has to write his own book of Chedushim. It doesn't mean Chedushim is like new ideas that no one ever heard of. Everyone has to write his own book of Chedushim, means things that hit home for you, and these are things I need to repeat it. These are things that I need to go over because this hit me. This really was powerful for me. Obviously, this is a teaching that I need, and I'm not going to just learn it once. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to have my own book of things that I need to repeat and to learn over and over again, because these are things that really, they did the job for me. Like we said, the Gemara says, יפה מכת מרדות בליבו של אדם, יותר מאלף מלכויות. Better is one message that you allow to penetrate your heart than 1,000 lashes. I can hit you, put it into your head, and you're not letting it in. But when you open yourself up and you allow that message to come in, or for some reason it got in, then you have to understand that this is not a simple thing. This is a gift from God, and I want to make sure that I don't lose that gift, that I just had something that was able to get in. Wow. Like Rav Tzvi Yehuda said, when he went to the Kotel, he came back to the Kotel and he said, they said, what was your experience? Because he would go very, very, not very often to the Kotel. But when he would go to the Kotel and he would be shaking for 6 hours after being at the Kotel to calm down from that experience. And they asked him, what was your experience? He says, there are people that have a heart of stone, and there is stones that have a heart of man, of flesh. Unfortunately, our hearts are hearts of stone, many of us. But when something gets in, hits home, wow, that's a huge gift. Don't let that just skip you by. Make your own book of things that hit home. Okay? Today it's not hard. You can, if you have your phone, you can make a file of things hit home. You can make a file of classes that hit home. You can make a file of, save each class. This is a class I need to hear again. This is a teaching I need to learn again. This is something. So it's very important. So let's begin. From the book of Mesilat Yesharim, from the Ramchal, you can learn huge classes just based on the headlines of the headline of the chapter. Beveur klal chovat adam be'olamo. So we're going to learn first of all about the obligations of a person in what? How would you translate? Klal chovat adam be'olamo. How would you translate? We're going to learn about the rule of the obligation of man
in his world.
Very nice. So that's the right translation. But what it should have said was the obligation of man in the world. Why does it say in his world? Rule number 1, you want to learn this book? Stop looking left and right to see how am I doing based on how other people are doing. It's very hard because we live in a world that's based on Christian system of education, that's based on, you take the average student, what should he know when he's in first grade? Okay, that's the program. We have 80% that needs to learn, that shouldn't be on this level, and that's the program. And then what happens? What happens if you're under average, and what happens if you're over average? The kids at risk that are on the street are the kids that are under average and over average. And especially in the world we live in of what we called hesegiyut. How would you say that in English? What's the word for hesegiyut? Achievements. Physical, they only value the achievements. So what happens? You have a kid that's on the 10% like me, on the below average. And then you have a kid that's 10% above average. And they're learning for the test. The kid below average is spending 6 hours to learn for the test and he gets 60. The kid above average studies 5 minutes and he gets 100. Who are they praising? Who's getting all the great awards? But in the God's eyes, the reward that you get in heaven is based on one thing. Not how many pages you learned. There's how do you say, quantity has no value in God's way of measuring. How does God measure it? Effort. In how many hours did you study? And it makes no difference, that's what we say, Adam la'amal yulad. The reward comes for the effort. And other things, show me the reward for the outcome. It's not about the outcome, it's about the effort. God created you in the world to put the effort in. So first, most important lesson that we learn from this introduction is, from the headline, is you are in your own world. God builds you a program. There's an education that's one day will hopefully be the next level of education, which is like Montessori, where each kid has his own program. It's very expensive. It's very difficult. Where each kid has their program based. But as AI grows, maybe they'll be able to do it more, because you can put a kid with a robot to help him, expand. But who knows? But then obviously it's not with a human being. But what were we saying? That. Where are we at? Remind me what I just said. The effort. So like we said, anyway, I lost my train of thought. The idea is that you have your own system, your own program that's God tailor-made it for you. Same thing. So if God gives you a challenge, we have a war now, we have the ability to win the war. We have the ability to fight it. We have the strength to deal with it. God doesn't give you tests. Everything is perfectly tailor-made for you to always bring you to the next stage and you're always challenged to the max. It's not too easy, it's not too hard. But if God gives you the challenge, you can overcome the challenge, whatever the challenge may be. Prove it. You see two people go through a very difficult challenge. One is able to overcome the challenge. Another person is crushed. You have a choice. You have a choice from a difficulty. Am I gonna grow from it? Am I gonna overcome it? Am I gonna deal with it, or am I gonna just collapse and not deal? But if God gives the challenge, He gives the ability to overcome it. So that's one thing. Is we ended with the last part is in your world. Be very understanding of. If someone asked someone I remember during Corona, someone asked the Rabbi, what do I need to work on? You need to work on that question that you don't know what you need to work on. Everyone during a challenge needs to say, what am I doing? Or what can I do better? And you need to know what the things are that, where are my weaknesses? Where are my strengths? How do I need to make better? This is the reality. So that's message number one. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Know where you're standing and be in a process of growth, of movement. Know where you are and what do you need to do to take the next step to become better and to grow more. And that's hard, but you have to change your way of mind. It's in your world, and God's only measuring you based on on who you are, and not based on anything that's around you, any external levels of measurements of value. It's only who you are and what you're overcoming. Rule number 2, Be'ur klal chovat adam b'olamo. Wait, what are you saying? I'm going to teach you now about the obligation that you have in the world. What do you mean obligation? I'm in the world to have fun. Who said obligations? The Western culture that we live in, where the largest growing disease is depression. Why? Because they say, we're here to have fun. And you're here to have pleasure. There's no obligations. But the fact is, the pleasure and the fun are, how do you say, far and, what's the word? Far in between?
Few and far between.
Few and far between. Till you have pleasure, you have to cook, you have to work the land, till you can actually get that food, and you eat it, you're full, and you got to go around again so it's like 90% of the work is effort. You work like 5 months, and you get your vacation for a week. It's like, that's it. Far, how do you say? Far and...
Few and far between.
Few and far between. If you say that your job in this world is to have pleasure, so you have the largest growing disease in the world is depression. Because I came to an amusement park and I'm not having fun. I want my money back. I came here for an amusement park, and where is the fun? But as we say, and here we're going to go into how do we look at it? We say you're here to have obligations. Okay, so what's obligations? I have obligations. I owe. I have to pay off debts. I have to help. I have to see myself as I'm here to work. I'm here to fulfill obligations. I have obligations to God. I have obligations to my family. I have obligations to my nation. I have obligations to my country. I have I have obligations. And if that's your the way you look at the world, you're the happiest person ever, because there's always opportunities to work and to fulfill obligations. But it's a completely different mindset. But like we said, and here the Ramchal will explain it in depth. Okay, so let's start. יסוד החסידות ושורש עבודה התמימה הוא שיתברר ויתאמת אצל אדם מה חובתו בעולמו ולמה צריך שישים מבטו במגבתו בכל אשר עמל כל ימי חייו. First thing tells us the Ramchal. The foundation of serving God in a perfect way is first to understand what is my goal. Understand the goal. If a commander, before you go and just charge, the commander says to the soldiers, we're on this mountain. You see that mountain there? We're going to conquer that mountain. Then once you start taking the journey, you don't see the top of the mountain anymore. But you have to always keep in mind the goal. And you have to first set the goal. And this is a very important thing. There's a book by named Viktor Frankl. I don't know if anyone heard of him. He was in the Holocaust, and he wrote a book. He said, because I had a goal, he said people weren't dying from diseases. They were dying from a lack of a goal. That's what he said. Unbelievable. He said everyone was sick. So why did these people die? When you had a goal and a mission of something I need to live for, something I need to keep. He's like, I had a goal. I wanted to write a psychology book. So that was my goal. But a person needs to understand their goal. I heard once from a rabbi once. He told a story of this person. Every month they redo their whole kitchen. He said, why do you do it? He said, I need a goal. I have to go and I have to go get to pick the things and the colors, and I'm busy all day long and it's done. I have to do it again. Or like there was a bus driver once driving very fast, and someone said to him, what happens once you get to the end? I go around again. So why are you running? Because I have a goal. I need to get to the last station. Yeah, but you keep going 8 hours a day. It makes no difference, if you go fast or slow.
Well, that's the rat race.
The rat race, exactly. So, rule number 1 is, the Ramchal tells us that if you want to serve, what's your purpose in the world, you need to first understand what is the goal of all goals. What should my goal be in life? The rabbis taught us that your goal in life is what's the goal? To have pleasure. Whoa. But that's what they say. To have pleasure on your connection, litaneg al Hashem. To have pleasure with your connection with Hashem, and to enjoy the Shekhinah. And this is the greatest pleasure of all pleasures. And there's no greater pleasure like this from all the pleasures of anything. What's the purpose of life? What's the goal of all goals? To have pleasure. Whoa, Rav Kook has a whole essay where he gives 8 different explanations. How could the Ramchal say this? That's the goal in life? Even if it's that pleasure on connecting to Hashem. That's the goal? Pleasure? The answer is yes. Have pleasure on your connection to Hashem. So again, pleasure, in the Western world, we said the pleasure is the goal. In the Jewish world, the pleasure is the means, the physical pleasures. We're not against pleasures. We don't say a person should inflict himself. You shouldn't do fasting. I was just in America. I got to someone's house. Before we talk, come jump in an ice bath. Minus 50 degrees. What? I went in for, he says, 6 minutes you have to be in this bath. That's the way it works. I went in for 1 minute. He's sitting there like relaxed, like nothing happened. I went in 1 minute. He's like, just go like this and breathe. After 1 minute, I jumped out. I said, listen, this is not for me. The Ramchal says, don't jump in snow baths. Don't do all these crazy things. overcome your challenges with your wife and your kids. Ooh, that's harder than any 6-minute ice bath. Don't worry, God, He builds it for you. All the challenges are built in. You don't need to now invent new ones of sitting in ice baths, suffering. Okay? So, we said, in the Western world, the goal is pleasure, physical pleasures. By us, the goal is pleasure, spiritual pleasure, connecting with God, doing the right thing, being right, getting close to God. This is the ultimate goal. The physical pleasures are not the goal, they're a need. They're a means towards the goal of serving God. You need to have pleasure in order to serve God. You need to sleep well, eat well, be healthy. That's wonderful. Do exercise, eat well, eat healthy food, sleep well, get your 8 hours, no problem. It's not the goal. It's the means towards the goal. That small little nuance. The pleasure is not the goal. Physical pleasure are not the goal. The physical pleasure are the means towards the real goal, which is getting close to God. And how do you do that? That's the Ramchal will obviously teach us through the whole book. This is like, will explain to us how do we reach this physical pleasure, this attachment to God, the love, all these things. That's what it means. A person that has purpose, has meaning, has value in what he does. This is what it's all about. Umakom, here we go. Umakom, but where's the place that you really have this pleasure? Umakom ha'idun hazeu olam haba. This is the next world. Okay, now where does this idea come from, olam haba? If you look in the Torah, you will see no mention of olam haba. The Torah says, if you go on my ways, you'll have this world. You'll have food, you'll have wealth, you'll destroy your enemies, you'll have peace, you'll have your children and everything, physical thing you need. Rain and food and everything else. So why is the Ramchal telling us about Olam Haba? The answer is, most people, you don't need to come and explain to them why they shouldn't commit suicide. Somebody comes to you and says, would you want to come to class why you don't commit suicide? You say, no, I think I'll pass. Oh, you want to kill yourself. No, I just have no... I love living, and I don't need anyone to explain to me why I should. It's not even a thought that crosses my mind. Same thing is true for the concept of Olam Haba. Until 2,000 years ago, when the philosopher Epicurus came along and said, all there is the physical world and the reality that we're in now. And everything else doesn't exist. And people got confused. And then, only 2,000 years ago, suddenly, if you do this and this, you'll get Olam Haba. You will get the next world. Suddenly, all this talk of Olam Haba began because of a lack of spiritual health, or people were not aware. But the concept of Olam Haba, the idea of, there's a story of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, one of the Baal Tanya. He was sitting in prison, the soldier comes in, cocks the gun, puts it at his head. And he's sitting there with complete in peace. He smiles, and he starts to say the Shema. He says, Shema Yisrael, and the soldier says to him, you're not afraid I'm going to kill you? He says, let me explain to you something. You have lots of gods and one world. I have lots of worlds and one God. So these toys are meaningless to me. He says, what? You believe in life after death? He says, no. I believe in life after life. That was the conversation. So, like we said, suddenly there's much talk about Olam Haba. And what is Olam Haba? And that's basically, we're talking about Olam Haba is not a place, it's a state of mind, it's an existence, it's a awareness of your soul. The soul of the next world is this world. The soul of the next world is this world. And that's why rabbis used to bless each other when they would say goodbye. Instead of goodbye, they would say, Olamcha tireh b'chayecha. I bless you to see your life, your next life, in your life. In other words, to live Olam Haba now. And we'll explain that. Like, we're just getting opened up to this concept, but the idea is, and we said this is the first. We said there's 5 different angles of explaining Olam Haba. The first one is I'm talking to your soul. I'm talking to your soul. Later on, I'll talk to your intellect. I'll talk to your, all different aspects of your understanding. But right now, I'm talking to your soul. How do I know that there's Olam Haba? How do I know? Simple answer. My rabbi said so. Right? I just had like a revelation I want to share with you this morning, I think 2 days ago. In the morning we say the Ketoret. You know the Ketoret we say? And 2 thoughts I had when I was reading it. I was like, wow, I never thought of that. And 2 amazing thoughts. One thought is that it says that if you would put this mei raglaim, this water, that urine, into this certain type of incense, it would make it be incredible. But why don't you do it? Because of the respect for the holiness, you don't put the urine into this thing, even though it would make it like incredible. So first of all, we see that we're willing to give up on amazing and very big things. Maybe it could be much better, but I give up on it because of the respect for the Torah. It might not be as good. My internet might not be as fast because I put a block on it and now it like goes slower. Yes, you have to be willing to give up on certain things. It won't be as good, but I do this because of my service of Hashem. It's one thought I had. The other thought I had that was incredible. So it says, and why don't we put? There was something about so the Torah says also that if you would put honey into this thing, it would be incredible. But we don't do it. Why? Because the Torah said don't put honey into it. This level of having this simple faith of God said no. I don't know why. Because the Torah said no. This ability to understand. I don't understand everything. Not everything is intellectually explained and has like a meaning that I can now fully understand. No, I can't. There's some things that the Torah said. God said no. I don't need to understand everything. There's chukim. There's things that are not in our ability of our. Of course, let's not turn all of Judaism into something that's just contradicts our common sense, or that's like. But there's a certain place for naaseh v'nishma. I do it. I don't really understand. I hope to understand maybe one day. Okay. So the first thing we said, the rabbis told us there's olam haba. How did they tell us? Haolam hazeh. Makom haidun hazeh. Where are you going to have that highest level of pleasure of connection? Is in the next world, and that doesn't just come without any effort. It comes through a preparation. It comes through work that you brought it to that place. The next world is not something that, like Christianity, there's no way that you can't do anything that will make you be worthy of the next world. You only have to believe in Him. He'll do it for you, or because of Him, and it makes no difference of your personal effort. No, this will come from your work, and the way to get there is through this world. There's no bypass. There's no bypass. You want to get to the next world, you have to go through this world. You have to live this world fully. You have to experience this world fully. You have to really be doing it in the right way. And how do we learn that? Because the rabbis taught us how the rabbis taught us this world is a hallway before you go into the hall. So first of all, important thing to know, we say Ki biyah Hashem tzur olamim. God created the world with 2 letters, Yah. What is Yah? Yud is this world, and Hey is the next world. But they're under one roof, right? What does it mean if there's a hall, and then if there's a corridor, and then there's a hall? They're both under one roof. This world and the next world are not detached. But this world, it's like the Yud, it's a small little letter. We don't see the big picture. And Hey, the next world is already, It's like a big hall. You understand everything. So Rav Tzvi Yehuda said that the hallway is dark, and the hall there's billions of lights. So what do? How do you deal with? We're walking in a dark corridor. I can't see where I'm going. I'm falling. I'm tripping. I'm banging into things. How do I make it through this hallway? It's a dark hallway. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. אמונתך בלילות, the faith at night is the hallway. בבוקר חסדך is the next world. Everything's clear. Everything is like, you understand everything. In this room, we don't see it. It's dark. So what do? How do you survive? How do you make it through this hallway? The answer is, Rav Tzvi Yehuda says, open the door from if you open the door from the hall, then the billions of lights from the hall illuminate the corridor, and now so when you have an understanding, when you take a step back, you see things in a different perspective, with a different proportion. Your reality. It's not just that I'm here walking in a hallway and then it just ends. I bang my head in the wall and it's done. This is just the dark hallway, and it takes me into this huge hall, and it's under one roof. This world and the next world are connected. The soul and the body are connected. They're not detached. We don't want to bypass any part of this. It comes from the work. It comes from the effort. This is what it's about. And what brings us to reach the goal, like we said, of always remembering we have to have the goal of all goals. What's the goal of all goals? Is to connect with God, and that's the mitzvot. The mitzvot are what open the door. The mitzvot of the understanding that there is a Olam Haba, understanding that everything's guided by Hashem, understanding that everything is from Hashem. These are the things that open the door and allow those lights to penetrate into the hallway and illuminate our life, that we live with a purpose and with a meaning. And this is what, and then you get all the great reward, and that's what King David says. And that's what it says in the Gemara, Hayom la'asotam. Asher anochi mitzavcha hayom, what I command you today, Hayom la'asotam, umachar lekabel scharam. Once you're able to make this distinction, once you're able to make a split screen and say, okay, this is the world of work, this is the world of challenges, this is the world of serving Hashem when it's not easy, and this is the night, and I have my faith, and I know God's with me, and I know there's Olam Haba, and I know that I don't see the big picture, but I know that God is holding my hand. And then we see, once you understand, you're able to make that this is the world of work. And if it's the world of work, I want to work, and I'm here, I'm looking to fulfill my obligations. Suddenly, everything becomes clear. Your whole life, you suddenly start to smile. You suddenly start to see the world in a different aspect, in a whole different perspective on life. And how do we learn that from? King David. King David said, and I highly recommend you read this Tehillim word for word with some kind of commentary. Read Tehillim 73. It's incredible. People say, oh, rabbis, you have no challenges, everything's easy for you, you believe in God, and your life is easy. Read. First of all, there's nobody who had more difficulties and challenges in life than King David. Every possible challenge, from health to marriage, to children, to every children trying to kill him, to like problems with his children, every problem and his whole book is just about, I love God. The only thing I want is closest to God. How do you do that? How does a person go through every suffering in the book, and all he says is, Hashem, I just want to be close to you. Because he always remembered, I have my one goal. Everything in life can be taken away from you. Your money, your health, even your life. There's one thing that you're able to hold on to that nobody could ever take away from you. That's closeness to God. You're closest to God. Your connection to God. And King David said, Achat sha'alti me'et Hashem. If God would come to me, everyone knows the famous fairy that comes and says, you have 3 wishes. King David says, if the fairy would come to me and say, you have 1 wish, you don't have the ability to always say, I want this and I want that. Focus. What's the one thing? What's your goal in life? If I was asked, Achat sha'alti me'et Hashem, if I was asked, tell me what's the one wish, what's the one thing you want? You don't have 2. What's the one thing you want to ask? 1 request. What are you going to ask? What are you going to ask for?
To have 3 wishes.
King David says, if I was asked for one wish, the answer would be Shivti beveit Hashem kol yemei chayai. What does that mean? Where is the house of Hashem? Where is Hashem's house? Anyone know? It says about Moshe Rabbeinu, God says about Moshe Rabbeinu, Bechol beiti ne'emanhu. In all of my house, he is faithful. The house of Hashem is everywhere. When you have that one goal, and you have the goal of all goals, after that, you could be a plumber, you could be this, you can work there could be a million things you could do. But always go back to remembering, what's my goal? Achat sha'alti, I want one thing. Like we said, everything can be taken away from you. Your money, your wife, your children, your thing, even your life. But one thing can never be taken away from you. The Shivti beveit Hashem. Sitting in Hashem's home, it could be here, it could be there. It could be anywhere. Because Hashem, when you have that close to Hashem, it's something that can never be cut off. Everything else can be taken away from you, but not that. There's a story of a Holocaust survivor. They found his letter that he wrote. Hashem, you killed my wife, you killed my children. You did everything for me not to believe in you, and nothing will help you. I will love you till the day I die. There is nothing I want more than being close to you. That's it. That is a level that we can reach. Shivti beveit Hashem kol yemei chayai. Hashem, allow me to sit in your home. And that's the one thing, to have that attachment, that closest to you, because everything else in life that we think is good, a car, a money, all these status, all these things, ki kol ze ki ze rak hatov. This is the only thing that is really good in life. Anything else, kol yachshavu bnei adam latov, all the things you think is good. If I eat this, if I do that, if I reach this goal, all these things are good. Hevel shav v'niteh. It's all nonsense. It's all meaningless compared to that one request that you can have, which is, let me sit in your home, Hashem. Let me have that closeness, that attachment to you, that connection to you. Wow. Well, how do we reach that? Mesilat Yesharim explains to you step by step how to reach that closest to Hashem. That's what this book tells you. Right now we're just talking about the goals and setting the sights and understanding the mission in life. That's our whole. That's the goodness. That's good. Anything else? It's a false sense of what is truly good in life. So I bless us to really take the steps, and hopefully, like I said, whenever there's an opening, hopefully they'll let me in here, because I really want to keep my foot in the door with Mesilat Yesharim. So Bezrat Hashem. Thank you guys.